those up, and a portion of your purchase at certain stores will actually go back to Putah Creek Council. And again, we encourage you to sign up, give us your email, check out our website, and see all the great things that Putah Creek Council is doing in the local community. So without further ado, Greg.
Could we flip the lights off? Okay, my name's Greg Kareofelas. I've been doing Dragonflies now for... Your microphone's not working. It's not a microphone. No, it just goes to the camera.
Yeah, we'll be recording this, but if we need to, if we can borrow speakers from them.
No, I think this is good enough. You'll be able to hear me. If you can't hear me, I'll just get closer.
All right.
Okay, the image you just saw in the front of that, at the beginning title, is a scan. And the reason I use scans is dragonflies don't always let you take pictures. As you will find out, if you try to get close to them, a lot of times they're just going to fly away. So to be able to give a presentation like this, I must use images. And the images I use are scans. I make a scan of a dragonfly on a regular Epson scanner, just like you would copy a document. I scan these all at 2400 DPI, and then I end up with images like this that allow you to see. Now we're going to be talking about dragonflies basically in the Putah Creek area. Now Putah Creek as a creek starts basically close to Middletown. It flows through the foothills, goes through Berryessa, and I'm probably one of the few people that can remember actually going to the little town of Monticello before they built the dam. We went in, my dad took me there, and we went in and bought Cokes. And they built the dam in the 50s. Now that changed drastically what had been a creek that every winter would be able to flood. This is a picture I took last year when water was going through the glory hole. Floods like this would happen every time there was a major deluge. It would wash trees, it would break off willows, it would deposit them all up and down the channel. This provided a riparian corridor through a very dry habitat. So basically dragonflies could go up and down this corridor. The dam has changed that. So a lot of the dragonflies I'm going to show you, you're going to have to go above the dam to some of the smaller creeks to be able to see. Now, what do dragonflies need? Basically air for the adult to fly in and water for the larval stage. Dragonflies are insects. Insects have their sexual organs at the end of their tails. For an insect to mate, a male and female must come together like these two butterflies. They join at the tails, and this is where the mating takes place. Now, all insects do this. And what this does is it puts these individuals in a very precarious situation when they're mating. Butterflies can fly to escape a predator. If this butterfly is scared, one will fly and one is going to be towed along. So it doesn't matter whether we're talking about flies, beetles, all insects mate this way. This means they're not able to fly like a butterfly could fly. Dragonflies evolved way back here. This is a Carboniferous era. So before dinosaurs, before butterflies. So dragonflies figured out a better way to do this, because once you're in the air, you're able to evade predators. They're just like any other insect. This is a female darner. This is where her sexual organs are. Now, if you notice this little sharp spine there, a lot of people have thought of that as a stinger. Dragonflies cannot hurt you. They have stingers. This is part of her ovipositor. This is the way that she'll lay eggs. This is a male dragonfly. And just like the female, it has its sexual organs at the end of its tail. But unlike any other insect, a dragonfly has a second set of sexual organs. They're found at the beginning of the abdomen, right at the end of the thorax. When this dragonfly male is mature and ready to start mating, it will take the sperm produced at the tail, twist his tail around, and deposit the sperm here. This has given dragonflies and damselflies a tremendous advantage. For when they're ready to mate, the male with his tail is able to grab the head of the female. You'll see dragonflies flying in this position. It's called in tandem, in train. But basically, they're both pointed in the same direction. They're both able to fly as easily as they could fly as individuals. They can evade predators. They can evade me trying to take this picture. I mean, it took me an hour and a half to get close to this one to get that picture a couple weeks ago. So, by holding the female, two things have happened. Number one, the female has had to want to be held, because anytime she wants to break away from here, she can release her feet right there holding onto his tail and fly away. If she so chooses to mate with this particular male, they will go to a hiding place and she will bring her tail to that secondary sexual organ. This allows the transfer of sperm to happen. But before that happens, there's one other little trick. Is his little secondary sexual organ here is perfectly matched to hers. And it will scrape out any other male that had gotten there before he did, before he puts his sperm there. So from this point on, every egg she lays will be his DNA, not anybody else who got there first. These are two damselflies. Damselflies do it basically the same way. So, if I would have scared these when I was taking this picture, they would have been able to fly away just as quick and just as easy as any individual. They are both flying, so it's just like a tandem bicycle. They will lay an egg. That egg will go in water in some form, and it will develop into a nymph. The nymph will live in the water anywhere from a few months to many years, depending on the species. And again, a lot of these things I'm going to be telling you are kind of generalizations, but they are all species specific. If one species takes 6 years for it to develop, everybody in that species will do the same thing. Unlike a butterfly, which is what's called perfect or complete metamorphosis, you have an egg, a larva, a chrysalis. The chrysalis looks nothing like the caterpillar and nothing like the butterfly. A butterfly will come from that chrysalis. That is called complete metamorphosis. Dragonflies are incomplete metamorphosis. The egg will develop into a nymph. Each nymph will look a little bit like the nymph before it, because insects have an exoskeleton. They can only grow to a certain length before they have grown out of the size of the exoskeleton they're in. That will split and it will become a larger larva. The last stage will look like this. You can see wings, you can see eyes, you can see a tail. It's kind of a squished up looking adult. That larva will climb out on a weed or a twig or a rock, and the adult will climb out of that exoskeleton. At this point in time, this dragonfly is extremely vulnerable. It is extremely tasty, big, huge morsel. A lot of things would love to eat it at this point in time. What it will do is it will climb away from the exuvia, which is what that cast-off shell is called, because birds know what those things look like. When they start seeing those, they will start looking for dragonflies. So the first thing the dragonfly will do is start pumping fluid into the hollow veins of its wings, and the wing will start to expand. It will get bigger until it gets to be a full-size wing. The wing is still very soft. The body of this dragonfly is still very soft. So as soon as it can fly, as soon as these wings have dried just enough to fly, it will leave the water and it will go into the forest or the grassland or whatever is around it. Because again, it will know that birds know that dragonflies at this stage can be caught. They can be eaten very easily. So, when you think about what do dragonflies need, they need water, they need air, but they also need this area away from the water. Because if they can't get there and spend the next 5 or 6 days eating and hardening up, they will never become a successful adult. So, this dragonfly is just about ready to fly, and if you're ever around water just about this time of the year, and you see a dragonfly flying, and its wings look very much like cellophane, it's very shiny, that's what you just saw, was one of these making its maiden flight from the water, trying to get to a place to hide. Those are called tenerals, just like general with a T. So all dragonflies in this stage, that's called the teneral stage. So, dragonflies, odonata, Greek tooth for the big mouth they have. Damselflies and dragonflies. California has about 40 damselflies, about 67 dragonflies. I say about because there's a lot of people now playing dragonflies. A lot of the birding people have gotten into it. And they love to go down next to the Arizona border, next to the Mexican border, next to the Nevada border, and just wait for somebody to fly across the border so we can add one more list to the California. So the list is going up by 1 or 2 every year. But 40 species of damselflies, so basically 100 damselflies and dragonflies. The number is important because that's not very many. That's an easy, doable number. You can learn these very, very easily. Okay, we'll talk real quick about damselflies. 3 families. The Calypteryx ruby wings. You'll see these along Putah Creek, even I think between the dam and Winters. I think these will, I mean, you can't mistake it. It's the only damselfly that you're going to see that's going to have red spots on it. Ruby spot is its common name. The next kind of damselflies are the lestes. Lestes are unique. Dragonflies hold their wings like this. Damselflies hold their wings behind them. Spread wings kind of fall in the middle. Their wings are kind of out like this. These guys are pretty cryptic. Unless you know what you're looking for and go looking for them, you will not just notice these. Spread wings. The last damselfly is the one that you all see. All of the little blue damselflies. There is a whole flock of them. They're very, very difficult to tell apart. You have to use at least a 10 to 15 power microscope, look at their tails and compare it to pictures, ranges, time of the year you're looking at to identify these. If you finally get through the dragonflies and end up in the damselflies and get to this stage, you're doing very, very good. So, dragonflies. These are the big ones. First superfamily that we're going to look at please work, has three groups: the petallurids, the gomphids, and the eschnids. The petallurids are the most incredible ones. This is California. In fact, this is the world's most ancient dragonfly. If you notice, the eyes do not touch. It has very primitive veins on the wings if we were playing wing venation. But the coolest thing about this particular dragonfly is all other dragonflies' larvae are in the water. Petallurids do it a little bit different. They will lay their eggs in the water. Their larvae will hatch from those eggs. But as soon as it gets to be big, not very big, it will crawl out of the water and it will dig a tunnel. And that tunnel has to go under the water level of the area that it's in. So visualize ground, tunnel. Halfway down that tunnel, there's a water level layer. We've now just described an extremely unique set of water conditions. So you're talking about certain little seeps, certain little springs. This dragonfly developed before fish. So it cannot live where there's fish. Its larvae could not compete with fish. So it will crawl under this water level in its tunnel because it can only breathe when it's underwater. When it wants to hunt, it will crawl out of that tunnel and hunt at night terrestrial insects like beetles and spiders. So we've just described something that's extremely unique, and you can visualize how people walking by this stream squashing those tunnels would be death to this. A seep that has cattle on it will not have these dragonflies. So you only find these dragonflies in extremely unusual, rare places. The one place in the Putah Creek Canyon is the road going towards Pope Valley at the upper end of Berryessa. If you kind of get to a big parking lot where all the motorcycle guys usually park and drink beer, look to your left across the little inlet. There's a place up in the mountain there that was called Samuel Springs. It was an old hot springs. This dragonfly is recorded from there. The next group are the little gomphids. Again, eyes are not touching. Club tail. Common name are club tails. Again, a very primitive dragonfly. And we have quite a few of them in the Putah Creek drainage. But they're not going to be found in the main reservoir or in the big part of the creek. They will be found on the little small tributaries above the reservoir. And the main reason is that this dragonfly, again, very primitive, it will, when it's ready to emerge, will crawl out of the water onto a rock. And it will emerge not hanging down like you would think it would have to, but it can emerge on a flat rock or right along the edge of the bank. So, if it was on a river where a boat was going by, a dog was splashing in the water, any disturbance in the water that was not supposed to be will wash that dragonfly off that rock at that time and it's dead. So the only places that these dragonflies now survive are in places like this where the water level does not change artificially. The water level of this creek is when it rains it comes up, and when it dries, it goes down. It doesn't have any splash to it. It doesn't have boat wakes. It's very predictable as to what that level is. You can still find these dragonflies there. The next part of this group are the eschnids, the darners. And I show you 3 darners here. They all look the same. But what I want you to look at is, now just look at the difference in the tails. That's how you're identifying these dragonflies. So superficially, they're all called blue darners. Each one is different. And to be able to identify them, you have to be able to see the tail on it. The green darter. This is the one that would fly in your backyard. It's going to fly in, it can raise young in swimming pools. It can, I mean, if there's water that stays, it can just about raise. So it's a very adaptable, common, far-ranging dragonfly. This is the big one. This is Anax walsinghami, named after an Englishman. It is the largest darner, the largest dragonfly that we have in California, in fact, in the United States. When I scan these two, this is a regular sized dragonfly. I scanned them at the same time so that you'd be able to get an idea of how big this guy is. When I first was looking for it, you know, the color is very similar to the green darner. And I can remember asking my friend who was showing me dragonflies, I said, Andy, how can I tell the difference? And he said, when you see it, you will know. It flies like a C5A. I mean, his tail is hanging down. It's very slow. Again, this is found on some of the upper creeks above the reservoir. Corduligaster, another really strange dragonfly that you have to kind of look to see. It's big, and it's our only black and yellow dragonfly. It has gorgeous blue-green eyes, but it's a very big dragonfly. It's the size of the regular darners. Okay, it's as big as all of the other darners are. The next group is the libellulates, the Macrobias. This very much looks similar to the one that we just saw, but you notice the yellow is not quite as yellow, and the black is just a little bit different looking. The eyes do not have that beautiful blue-green color of the other one. But the main thing that would be the difference is this guy's called a river cruiser. So big body of water, river, creek, it's going to be flying real fast up and down the middle. The other dragonfly is going to be flying along the shoreline. So again, a lot of the way that you're going to know what you're looking at is first by learning the habits of the species. And you're kind of lucky because when I first started to do dragonflies as a kid, I can remember going into the library in Woodland and getting this huge big book called Westfall and Needham, and coming home and finding out that there wasn't a one color picture in it. And it was just writing. And I couldn't figure out how I was going to ever learn a dragonfly. Today, you have the internet, you have wonderful websites, you have lots and lots of wonderful color books. And so when you go on, you're going to get a lot of behavioral attributes. Those first books are written purely by somebody looking at museum specimens. A lot of the stuff today is written by people like me who've actually been out watching them and can tell you, this guy's not going to fly next to the shore slow. It's going to be way out in the middle of the water flying very quickly. The next one is corduliids. Corduliids are normally found in high, cold mountain lakes. Luckily, we have one down here. And the way you know that you've just seen a corduliid is the green eyes. And these are dynamite green eyes. The common name of this guy is an emerald. And those eyes can be seen when it flies by you. You will see a flash of green. And you will say, I just saw an emerald. Now, the dragonflies that you always see. These are the ones that are noticed. People will say to me, I just saw this really, really pretty dragonfly with black on its wings. And they will think that I would be able to tell them which one they just saw. But there's a whole bunch that have black on its wings. Now, I want you to notice A little bit of color on the tail. But right at the bottom of the tail, you can kind of see this little light blue color starting to form. All of these dragonflies have that. It's called prunescence. It's just like the white blush that's on a plum or a, when you take a plum and you kind of buff off that little white color and you get down to the shiny color of the plum. Same thing. These are the scales, or these are the cells on the exoskeleton will dry and change this color to give mature males in this particular group this whitish color. And you see these little black spots right there? That just tells you that this was a very sexually active male. It's kind of like a monkey bite for a dragonfly. What it says is he's had plenty of females hanging on to him, and that becomes something that females will look for as he's perched, because he will have staked out a perfect spot along a river that's a good habitat for laying eggs. Females will come and they will see a male like this. He will stand a much better chance of mating than this guy, who is not quite there yet. About another 2 weeks, his tail will be as blue as the others. So, dragonflies in this particular group have wings that will color, because the wing also picks up that white color. So when this dragonfly emerged, the black would have been on his wings, but the white came as he matured. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks after he emerged, he will get this white. He will perch in a high spot so females can see that. And females will look at that and they'll go, cool, this is a good male. The other one you all see is the big red-orange dragonfly. This guy loves to perch on things. In the old days when cars still had antennas, you would always find one of these perched on the antenna. I have a couple little sticks that I just always keep in the yard sticking up, and I can go out. If you want to maybe move, I don't know that that's... Yeah, I would... I don't know what just... Anyway, so yeah, big red dragonfly, easily noticed. You'll see these things. I mean, they're in my yard a couple days ago. I mean, this is a common dragonfly that you will find. But if you're along the creek, this guy's going to look very similar. And again, it's very different. This one is called the red rock skimmer. And the reason it's called the red rock skimmer is, unlike the first one, which would land on little sticks, this guy flies up and down the creek and likes to land in a rock out in the middle of the creek. So you will never see this one landing on a stick, just like this one will never land in the middle of the river. So again, behavior is going to be the first way that you're going to start learning some of the names of the dragonflies. Okay, western pond hawk, Erythemus collicata, little female. If you look, little spike again for ovipositor. Male, both of them are green. They will come out of the water. Where these tend to live, there's a lot of green grass alongside of it, so they're able to kind of hide in that grass initially. But unlike the female, who's going to stay green the whole time, this guy is going to start turning blue. And it will turn very blue. So a lot of times when people were first describing dragonflies, Sometimes these different color morphs were actually given different names because they thought they were two different species. Because this looks so much different than the first green one. So, same dragonfly, young male. Older male. Want to try that one? Sympetrum. There's a whole little flock of little small dragonflies that tend to just like to land. So as you're walking through a field and you see these guys will fly up and they'll land. They'll fly up and they'll land. If you walk by barbed wire fences, they like to land on the barbs of a barbed wire fence. Sympetrum. Whole Arctic species. They're found probably California is the center of their world. There are more little species of Sympetrum than I think in any place else. Now, if you want to identify dragonflies and you don't want to go through the necessary steps to collect and process a specimen, what you can do is catch a dragonfly and take a picture. This is just one I took with my phone. You want a side picture, a head picture, and then maybe a real close-up picture of the tail. With those three, you will be able to identify this dragonfly even if you don't have it in hand. So I want to just quickly talk about 7 dragonflies. And I kid you not when I say if you just remember one of these names, and any dragonfly you see, call it that name, you're going to be right probably more times than you're going to be wrong. Pantelophlevescens, the wandering glider. Hymenea and Lacerata. Now, these 3 dragonflies form these big circles of dragonflies. If you go out over any parking lot, park, any open area today, you would have seen these dragonflies flying. They fly about 10 or 15 feet in the air, and they just kind of circle. Now, if you just are lucky and you can catch the light just right, you will see the wings of the little insects that they're up there eating on. And so just like sharks, they're up there going through these little insects that are just about 10 or 15 feet in the air. Exactly. Yeah, I mean it's, and they just when one shows up. Now the thing that's really interesting is if you look, this one is kind of honey colored. This one is a little bit more brown, and it's got a little brown spot at the base of its wings. And this one has a little bit bigger spot at the base of its wings. When I was a little kid, I used to think that these were all the same and just a little bit older and younger. And what I now know about dragonflies, that wasn't all that far wrong. But in this case, all 3 of these are different species. Big, huge wings, light little bodies. They can glide effortlessly. This is probably the most perfect flying machine that was ever evolved. This particular dragonfly, Pantelophlevescens, the wandering glider, literally has the world as its habitat. It lives high, high up in the upper atmosphere on what's called aerial plankton. All of the small bugs that are caught in updrafts of air, carried high up into the air. So this dragonfly can drop out of the air literally on cruise ships out in the middle of the ocean, Hawaii, South America, anywhere in the world, you have a chance of seeing this particular dragonfly because it literally is living way up there. It can detect the change in air pressure, knowing when there's going to be a rainstorm, and actually drop down to lay eggs in the pools. Another common name for this, rather than wandering glider, are rain pool gliders, because they will drop out of the air, and have a complete life cycle in a very small amount of time compared to a lot of the other dragonflies. So before the ephemeral water will go away, they will have made an adult.
How high up? How high in the atmosphere?
Way high in the atmosphere. Way up there. I mean, they're riding in the jet streams.
That's how many miles?
I don't know.
As high as a jet could fly.
Yeah. I mean, they are truly amazing. I mean,
Spray up there?
well, they're catching what's called aerial plankton, the small insects that get swooped up there. And so, it's like I say, there's certain questions that if I was going to start a website, I would like to call it the things that I wish I could ask them. That would be one of the questions. How did you end up way up there figuring this out? Because it would be an interesting story. So these three all fly together, and sometimes the green darner will join it. So a lot of times if you look up at this group of dragonflies just kind of circling around, you'll see a bigger one. It could be a green darner or a blue darner. And the amazing thing about this is that these dragonflies somehow know that they are such perfect predators that they can form interspecies feeding flocks, and there's no fighting amongst them, because they know that they are so good that they don't have to worry about somebody else getting their meal. How good. The eyes of dragonflies are so good